Hello and welcome to ReginaldESQ. I'm Underhook and this is my next in the series looking at the armour changes in patch 9.12 World of Tanks. Today we're looking at the Caernarvon, which has had a complete turret change. It's got a different turret on it altogether, and you'd have to say it's a substantial buff for the Caernarvon, which in my opinion certainly needed it. So on the right of your screen here is the pre-recording from the previous version of Tank Inspector, and on the left hand side of your screen is the current live version of Tank Inspector. The tanks will look out of proportion with each other. That is due to my pre-recording process, for which I apologise. The turrets, however, are completely different turrets, so yeah, basically the one on the left will look higher than it should. That's just due to the pre-recording. Alright, so let's get into it. Start the pre-recording and we'll go to the colorized view. I'll move them to front on. Obviously you can see there's massive differences in the turret. Pay no attention to, as I said, the out of whack differences in the hull. The hull is exactly the same. There have been no changes to the hull whatsoever. So the lower plate was 76mm. It still is 76mm. The upper plate is 120mm, or 130 I think it is. Still is, hasn't changed. Sorry, 150mm it is, hasn't changed at all. The turret though is quite substantially different. I'll just go back a little bit on this pre-recording. So the old turret, basically, we had the little red section at the front, which we still have on here, and that's the same at about 198mm. It's only tiny, this little bit in front, like a collar shield, if you like. A turret ring shield or turret ring collar. Now the brown section, sorry, I'm having trouble getting this stopping where I want it to stop. Trouble is when you pre-record, you don't know what's actually going to happen. Okay, so 152mm we had on basically this whole area here at the front of the turret. It was all 152mm on the Caernarvon, the old turret. Now it's 198mm, this entire front section. So that is a substantial buff of 47mm more armor. So that is huge. That is huge to these sort of areas of the tank. Let's have a look now, moving up a little bit. We're going to go into this sort of spaced armor here now. Now this purple section you can see here is actually 114mm overlaying 152 in that section. On the Caernarvon, the old turret, parts of the turret were absolutely very strong, but it was very, very, very patchy. So in that particular spot there, virtually impenetrable compared to the 198 that we have now. So, okay, you could say, yeah, if they hit that tiny little spot on the Caernarvon turret, it would have been stronger before. But that's just that little bit. When we move up a little, move around a little bit, here you can see we've got 114 over about 32 mils of armor. Then when we go to those pink sections there, the pink sections are simply about 90 mils, and that's all, no more than 90 mils. This section up here would have got 114 over 152 again. It's just extremely inconsistent. All these pink areas are just basically 114. Other parts are overlaying, some parts aren't. It was very, very patchy, whereas now it's a consistent 198. To me, that's quite a buff, because I know what armor I've got, and I know, or we know now, what we can bounce. Whereas before it was, oh well, if I'm lucky it'll hit this part, if I'm unlucky it'll hit that part, and yeah, so it wasn't reliable before. Now I think it is fairly reliable. So the green section on the roof there, you can see on the Caernarvon, was 51 millimeters before. Now we've got this section here which is 86 millimeters, so that's quite a bit more. Now obviously it's a bigger target on this tank. On the Caernarvon, it was probably most of the time a ricochet, unless they were slightly above you. Whereas this tank, it is penetrable, but it is, as you can see, very heavily sloped. And it's not too bad, 86mm. It's coming up as 192, which is fairly consistent. It's not too bad. The area just above the gun is actually a bit thicker at 95mm. It's coming to the equivalent of 200 there, because that is also heavily sloped. So we're getting roughly, we could say, we can definitely withstand 200mm of penetration on the front of this turret now. If I am lower here, then you can, obviously take a lot more, but keep the tank moving. So the cupola is also much stronger than it was on the Caernarvon. It's 127mm, and I think previously it was under 100mm. If we get there it is now. It was 89mm, so now it is 127mm. Now it does look higher here, I think, on this recording. I'm not sure how this is going to come out, but that will be mainly due to the fact of the way it was recorded. I think it's probably a tiny bit higher than the Caernarvon's previous cupola, but it won't make much difference. So moving along now, on this, we'll turn it to the side here. You can see that the hull remains exactly the same. We have the spaced armour with 6mm overlaying 51. It is 51 all along the side, making this tank not a very good side scraper, but it could be now a very good hill fighter, although the gun is still lackluster on this tank. Moving along to the side of the turret, which I'm just waiting for my recording to get there, we can see here the turret, there it is, was 92mm on the side of the turret, and now it is 95mm, so yeah, slight buff there. This section here though is less, it is only 76mm, but it is so heavily sloped that actually comes up thicker than the rest of it. It's giving us the equivalent of 109, whereas this is only giving us the equivalent 97. So definitely it is a buff there. Also, the front of the turret here, you can see, is 152mm, which was basically non-existent. It was just the whole 92 for the whole side of the turret. So now we've got this front bit here, which is also much, much stronger. And the red section here, obviously 190 something, 98mm. So overall, the side of the turret is a lot stronger than it used to be. It looks higher, like I say, on this recording. It's probably not much higher in reality, although it probably is a little bit higher. The back of the tank is exactly the same. The roof of the tank is pretty much exactly the same as well, except obviously the differences in the turret. And on the top of the turret, used to be 29mm, now it's 30mm, so no big deal. Although the front top of the turret is 80 something millimeters, of course. If you like this, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more tank reviews and armour reviews, please subscribe to ReginaldESQ. Have fun.